Welcome everyone to Prairie State Conservation Coalition's Conservation Connector. This is our third connector of the year, and we'll have at least one more before the year's end. And today's program is an introduction to urban forest carbon credits. And our speakers, as you have seen, and obviously this is a really popular topic because we have nearly 50 people signed up for this. So first of all, thank you all so much for taking time out in your day to be here for this really important and innovative program. So our speaker, Jess Beverly, is a carbon market contractor with the Land Conservancy of McHenry County, of which I'm a proud member. And Jess is an attorney and has devoted her career and free time to environmental advocacy since leaving the federal government in 2019. She worked as a clean energy advocate with the Illinois Sierra Club and helped pass CEJA in 2021, and has served as an environmental advocate and board member with the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County, and has served on the McHenry County Zoning Board of Appeals since 2021, and so much more. But I will move on to Lisa Haderlein, who many of us know, if not all, who's Executive Director of the Land Conservancy of McHenry County. She's led the TLC since 2002. And has taken that organization from an all-volunteer operation to an accredited land trust that holds 100 conservation easements, ranging in size from half an acre to 250 acres. TLC actively manages nearly 1,000 acres of land that it owns, engages thousands of local residents, including myself, I'm a McHenry County resident, annually through webinars, workshops, events, and personal consultations, and continues to preserve vulnerable natural areas and prime agricultural land through donated conservation easements. And we're very excited to have you both here today. And thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to the next hour with you and the opportunity to learn. Jess, you want to take it away?
Lisa's first.
Lisa, you want to take it away?
Sure. So good afternoon, everybody. I recognize a lot of the names, and if I could see your faces, I'd recognize your faces too. Thanks for the intro, Cynthia, and thank you, Jess, who you'll meet soon, for helping to put this program together today. So city forest credits, urban forest credits, and local land trusts, as it says there, a natural partnership. And I thought there was a program a couple of years ago at the Prairie State annual meeting when this subject was fairly new in Illinois, and a lot has changed in good ways. And there are some new opportunities and programs that are in place now that are in the works that thought it was time for an update on where things stand and where things are headed. I'm a very strong advocate for land trusts being engaged in this, and I'll talk about that more. But our Land Conservancy of McHenry County's specific partner in creating the forest credits and in marketing the credits has been an organization called City Forest Credits. They work nationally with land trusts and public agencies and pretty much anyone who has forest land to develop carbon credits, get them established and into a registry that they maintain, and then help sell those credits through various means. And we'll talk about that some more. So back in 2022, the Land Conservancy was contacted by the Morton Arboretum, who had established a partnership, or at least a relationship, with City Forest Credits, and Morton had received some funding to help develop carbon credits in the Chicago region. And so they reached out to us, and the Land Conservancy had within the last 2 years had acquired about 40 acres of oak woods at two different sites. And I'll mention it again later, but that's one of the requirements for doing carbon credits on property that's been preserved is it has to have been, the preservation has to have happened within 2 years. So for instance, if you have land that you preserved 3 years ago and it has forest on it, it's not going to be eligible, because the whole point of the program is to bring properties that weren't preserved into preservation. And so that requirement is the 40-year, the 40-year restriction on any development there. Anyway, going back to the slide, the reasons that we were excited about doing this: one, it includes a preservation requirement, which it would certainly be our intention whenever we're preserving land, purchasing land. And then there's also a requirement to monitor the property to document that the trees are in fact still there every 3 years. And as an accredited land trust, we monitor all of our properties every year. So adding a feature to the monitoring report that is then looking at the character and composition of the oak woods and writing up how that compares to the report when the property was when the carbon credits were developed isn't a big thing. I think we also have to do an aerial survey, which we use a drone, and that's not a problem either. One of the things that really excited me about this is a way of potentially getting funds for long-term management of these properties. And those of us in the land trust field, I assume everybody faces the challenge of adequately funding the needs of long-term management of the properties that we own. Unlike a government agency that gets tax revenue each year to fund operation of and management of the lands that they preserve, we don't have that. We either have to raise the money each year or have some type of endowment set up that's going to generate funds for that. And so Land Conservancy has now designated any income from these carbon credits to go to long-term management funding for the properties. The third thing that really that is still in development, but is that this is potentially a really, I think, a great tool for private preservation of private woodlands. In Illinois, in the Chicago region, I know for sure 70% of the remaining woods in the Chicago metro region, Chicago wilderness area, they are on private land. In McHenry County, it's 85% are on private property. And one of our challenges, if you're familiar with our Land Conservancy's program, Project Quercus, that we've worked on since 2006 to try to engage private woodland owners in taking care of their woods and potentially preserving them. The biggest challenge is that unlike folks who might own wetlands or other types of open space, even farmland, we've had a very difficult time convincing people who own woods to place a permanent easement on their woods. And I'm not sure exactly why, but this is a potential tool to be able to offer them funds, help them get funds for putting a 40-year restriction on their woods. So if you can do the next slide. For the City Forest Credits program, which again, their niche is urban forests. So this is not out in the wilderness. The goal is these are preserves, these are where people live, near where people live and work, not out where they might not be at risk. These are in ideally, or have to be, to qualify, have to be in either a metropolitan area or a metro planning area. Like the down in St. Louis, there's a bi-state, near St. Louis, there's a bi-state regional planning authority. In the Chicago area, it's the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. The Rockford area, there's the R1 regional planning area. So there are various regional planning areas around the state, and the woods have to be in one of those because one of the criteria is that there has to be some credible risk of development. If the property, so if it's owned by Forest Preserve District, Conservation District, that's their mission, is to preserve the woods. They're not going to get they're not going to be able to enroll them in the forest credits because you don't get credit for doing something that you're um, legally required to do. Similarly, if somebody, and we've had this situation, if somebody has a conservation easement and they donated it and it's on Oak Woods, they can't enroll those woods in the program because they're already preserved. They're already off the chopping block in terms of development. So there has to be some threat of conversion to a non-forest use that the enrollment in this program is going to take that threat away for at least 40 years. And like I've mentioned a couple times, that it needs to have been acquired within the last 2 years. Can go to the next slide. So there's an application process and there's some upfront costs. It's the application takes a little while. It's very detailed. They ask for a lot of information because they're meeting international standards actually that are set by different climate um, uh, groups internationally. And so you're looking at a lot of factors related to community building, community development, sustainability, stormwater. It's a lot of things, but it's not so complicated. It's not technically complicated. It just takes some time. And if anybody who's ever did an application with the Illinois Clean Energy Community Foundation, it's not more complicated than one of their applications. So it takes some time and you have to put some information together. There are upfront expenses. So there's a registration fee to be in the carbon registry. There's another fee for third-party verification of the carbon credits, which is very important. There's an account fee just to set up your credit registry account, which allows you to sell the credits. And then actually before the third-party verification, there's also the cost of having the forest surveyed to determine the number of credits that it's going to generate. And just so folks understand, it's the credits, and up here in the Chicago region, Davy Resource Group has been doing this certification. And what they're calculating is looking at over the 40 years that you're committing to this land being the forest being preserved and not developed, how many metric tons of carbon, additional carbon, will be stored over that 40-year time frame. And so that is the calculation that they're doing. Then their report, which is very comprehensive, then goes to a third-party verifier who goes through all of that and checks if there are any concerns and then certifies, says, yes, this is how many credits are are going to be available here. We were fortunate with the two forests that we did that that the Morton Arboretum's grant covered the survey work that Davy Resource Group did. So we did not have to pay for that. But it's typically ranges anywhere from 3,000 to 9,000, depending on the size of the woods. So can we go to the next slide? So a quick case study, 45 acre woodland, that's part of the largest, unprotected remaining oak woods in the county. We're ideally over time want to acquire or preserve through easements all of this woods. It's more than 200 acres. And some of the important reasons for that are it provides a habitat anchor for several bird species that are species of concern, provides recreation opportunities, connects residents in the greater Harvard area to nature, and would protect the woodland habitat and help prevent fragmentation of that habitat. Can go on to the next. And I see there's a hand up, but I think Cynthia said we'll take questions at the end.
I apologize. I don't have a question. It's Pam Altoff. I'll take full credit for throwing myself out there. Are you going to provide this PowerPoint to us at any point? Otherwise, I'm furiously taking notes.
Yes, Pam, it's being recorded and it will be on our Conservation Connector YouTube channel.
I love you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Okay. So here's the property, just so you can see, and then you can see I didn't do all of the oak woods, but you can see that the Crawley Oaks property that we own outlined in red there. The blue pieces are conservation easements that we have, and then the green off to the side is actually part of a conservation district site. But you can see there's a large network of oak woods that's connected, still remnant here, and the piece that we acquired is the easternmost part of that, and so it sort of serves as an anchor for the rest of that. So that was why we had acquired the Crawley Oaks property when we did, and one of the reasons why this is exciting with the carbon credits, because maybe it can help us continue that project. So when we want, some of the things that you have to look at for qualifying for the credits is what's the zoning on the property. So if it's for whatever reason zoned for conservation, then it's probably not going to qualify. If it's zoned for agriculture or estate, that's certainly from a zoning standpoint, that would qualify. You have to look at what the surrounding land use is. And in this case, it was a combination of farmland and large lot residential development. So that helped with the qualifying for the registry. Ultimately, the amount of credits issued were 7,700, and those were issued just so folks understand that you can set this up so that the calculation is done based on restoration of the woodland. You don't have to say, okay, now we can't do anything with this woods. You can be proactive right up front and say, okay, this is what the management plan is. Here's the current condition. And Davy Resource Group looks at that and says, okay, so based on what you're going to do from a restoration standpoint, here's the credits versus just, keeping the status quo. One of the nice things that they also calculate, which I think is an added benefit for these urban forest credits, is the co-benefits, which in the case of this property over the 40 years, The co-benefits related to air quality, water quality, water recharge, stormwater, air pollution, all of that is equated to over $112,000 a year in present value. So that's another advantage or benefit from this. And again, monitor and track the forest health, and we'll submit a report every 3 years for 4 years. Next slide. Okay. So here, we won't go into detail on this, but this is just showing you the factors that went into, up in the upper left, that went into the calculation of the $112,000, rainfall, air quality, cooling, heating. And then when the Oak Woods was assessed, there's the composition of the trees in the Oak Woods, and you can see that the value, the carbon value, is heavily weighted towards the oaks, in particular the white oaks and the bur oaks, that in part because they're old. They're large trees. In this area, they tend to be large, the larger trees. The pin oaks that they note are younger. Similarly, the shagbark hickories are younger. They're more have been coming in since the land stopped being grazed. The black cherry, American elm, and green ash are yeah, even though there are a lot of black cherries and they have a lot of volume, yeah, that they're per tree, it's not a lot. It's not at all like having an oak. So you can go to the next slide. So again, this just opens having potential for developing these credits. The income from sale of the credits just opens up opportunities to preserve more oaks. The pieces that are outlined in blue there, it's all the same owner of those pieces. So this was just an assessment that we were doing of looking at, okay, so if we could persuade this one property owner to sell credits or sell the land and figure out how to acquire it, this is what it would look like. So we're in the process now of actually talking to several private landowners about the carbon credit program, forest carbon credit program. It's so new that so far the only folks who really sort of understood it right away instinctively and were like 100% on board didn't qualify. So, but we're still talking with folks, and as we're talking with them more, I think we'll eventually start to find folks that where this is a good fit for them, for their families, and for their goals for their land. Next slide. I won't spend time on this, but this is just a potential project that's some property that's between two golf courses. It's zoned agriculture. It's clearly under threat of development with the golf course developments and housing that's adjacent to it. And so we did an estimate for the landowner, estimated there'd be about 6,000 credits, net credits, and then just ran a scenario of up to $15,000 upfront expenses, which we would cover from the income that we get from sale of other credits. So we would cover that. And then when the credits start to sell, the first flush of funds would reimburse us for those upfront costs. And then the scenario that we ran for them, and we're still trying to figure out what's going to be the right number for this. But the first pass through, we said, okay, then after the upfront costs are covered, then we would keep 20% of the net revenue from the credits as they sell, and the property owner would get 80%. So if run the numbers on that for this 37-acre Oak Woods, they would end up getting more than $4,000 an acre, which is comparable and actually a little better than the value of selling conservation easement on Oak Woods from what we've seen. So they're not sure that that's a good number. But anyway, so that's just an example. Next slide. And we won't take questions. We'll go on to the next phase. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm on the demand side. So Lisa just talked about how we get projects created and how we get things going and on the board. I'm on the sales side. And CFC created a market and a program for these small landowners to have carbon credits. And they're a valuable resource, as Lisa explained. They're also there to support people in selling the credits, because if you're sitting on a bucket of credits and you don't know how to sell them or where to sell them, it makes it difficult. So what they did is they realized that the open market has failed small projects. They're noting there's a lack of interest from brokers. Buyers can't find small projects, so they created regional markets. There's Chicago, which is where I work. So we're in the CMAP area. And then there's Atlanta, the Georgia-Alabama Land Trust is part of that, Cleveland area, Western Reserve, Minnesota, Green Cities Accord. They're bringing on other nonprofits to help in regional areas where they have a store of credits to sell. Owner-operators are also encouraged to coordinate their own sales, and in doing that, you can work with CFC to get your own credits off the board. You have a buyer, they route everything through the broker, and it's all done. It's really pretty seamless. The goals of the regional hubs are to create networks of buyers accessible to the owner-operators to do themselves or to do through me, or a contractor like me, to seek advanced purchase commitments, create high-quality targeted marketing materials. We're kind of in the process of doing that right now, and create social media and other communications, drum up interest in buying these credits. I've met with a few different people, and they're really they kind of sell themselves. People get really excited about it, but they don't know about it. So we're building up interest and moving forward with that. And as I said, we have a volume of credits to sell right now. There are over 170,000 credits available in the City Forest Credits Registry. 160,000 of them are the ICROA endorsed ex post credits, and ex post credits are existing woodland projects like Crowley Oaks, like Lisa described, and 10,000 are ex ante planting projects. The ex ante projects are forward or future credits where they plant the trees and then wait for it to grow, and you can purchase into those programs. In order to work with CFC, all projects are nonprofit land trusts and local government. And it's important that we really keep track of these are urban forest credits. So projects are in media markets serving more than 20 million. Isn't it? Okay. As Lisa said, these are internationally validated credits. They're ICROA accredited, which is huge. ICROA stands for the International Carbon Reduction and Offset Accreditation Group. They're a global endorsing standard. It's very difficult to achieve ICROA standards, and CFC worked really hard to make sure that all of their projects fit in there. And they also have a project in the Pittsburgh area that was an A in the B0 carbon registry. B0 Carbon is a UK-based carbon project rating firm. They're really big, and A is the most difficult to achieve. They're working on it with a few other projects in the area. It just demonstrates the quality of the city forest credits. They don't want to mess around with low quality. Some of the things that we talk about when we meet with buyers are the benefits of purchasing these credits. They are high quality credits, easily monitored in the urban areas. The maps and all of the tools that we have available to have buyers shop around for projects demonstrate exactly how many people live within a 20-minute drive of each project. These projects are assessed for co-benefits as addressed by Lisa. We tend to highlight one or two projects that are near the business that we're talking to, and we talk through the co-benefits, the environmental, climate, the obvious climate benefits, air quality, water quality, things like that. You can also talk through local job creation, the heating and cooling of the forest, things like that. It's all in the projects that are assessed. And we also like to highlight the benefits of being a leader in urban climate action by purchasing these credits. You are making sure that these land trusts and local government units can realize the benefits of their hard work in preserving these. So those are just some of the ways that we're marketing them right now. This is a map of current projects that are available in the CMAP region. The co-benefits are listed for each project on their project pages. The land trust or government agency that owns it is tasked with developing that. So like you would want to address the watershed, the scope, the quality of the project, the trees that are featured, like Lisa explained with Crowley Oaks. One of the projects that I think is really interesting is the Old Mill Forest project, which is owned by the Lake Forest Open Lands Association. That project was supposed to be homes, and they managed to acquire it through a private landowner. It's mature growth, old growth oaks, hickories. It's at the headwaters of the West Fork of the Chicago River. The project boasts wetlands and a sedge meadow off to the side. It's contiguous to the Illinois Nature Preserves property. This project is really unique, and I think it's really interesting to kind of look at these projects and talk through them with buyers. Like really explain, like, this is in your backyard. They have trails. You can do your employee picnic here. Like, go visit it. You preserved it. People get really excited about that when we go through that. And this is just some more information about how the credits are evaluated. As I said, they are ICROA certified credits, but CFC has their own process for evaluating the sustainable goals for the UN and their own Carbon Plus credits, which align very closely with ICROA's very own standards. So they look to all of these different factors in assessing whether they are going to take on a project. And we look to all of these factors when we're going to talk through purchasing these credits. So you can see on each project site, you know, what are the benefits to the air quality? What are the benefits to recreation? Things like that. It's really pretty interesting, and people really like talking about it when they do their press releases saying, we bought this many, it's amazing. So these are just some of the ways when you're thinking about developing a project or thinking about selling credits that you have, these are your tools for marketing your credits. As I said, we're very much like at the beginning phases of this. CCTs are the regional hub land trusts that are working with the city forest credits. So we are in various phases of outreach and research about who might be interested in purchasing these products. They've deployed some CRM software so we can keep track and talk to each other about who do you know and who don't you know, and how do we reach out to these businesses that might be interested in buying them. Many of us, myself included, have had sales meetings with potential buyers, and we're honing marketing materials to try to help explain the value of these credits. When you actually sit down and meet with someone, they get very excited. But if you just send them the website, they're like, I don't know what this is. I'm not interested. So we're trying to figure out where we're going with marketing materials and how we're going to get people interested in these projects, because people are very interested in purchasing them when they find out what they are, or that they're available, or how much they cost. We're also meeting with project operators to address strategy of marketing and outreach. As a project operator, you should certainly feel free to sell your own credits, look to your board members, who's in your network, where do you work, what do you do, look to your volunteer organizations. If you have a company that likes to come restore your woodlands, maybe they'd like to buy credits for those woodlands. These credits are not expensive. They're between $20 to $50 per credit, and that's a metric ton of carbon. I was doing some math yesterday, playing with one of the calculators online, and for me to drive from Cary to Kalamazoo, Michigan is less than 1 carbon credit. So, I mean, they're really not very expensive for a company to offset their travel or offset their facilities, greenhouse gas emissions, things like that. And we're also working on honing website materials and looking at specific projects and regions to work with owner operators and work with businesses that are co-located in those regions. And I am a very fast talker, so that's all I have. We can open it up for Q&A if you're ready, Cynthia.
Yeah, that sounds great, Jess.
Cynthia, could I just say one thing?
Please do.
That,
Yep.
that I can't believe I didn't mention it. But the Land Conservancy last fall did sign a contract to sell up to 9,000 of our credits this year. And anyway, it's with a large Chicago event. They're not ready to do the press release yet, but they've been making the payments for the credits, and the sale after the broker fee and then after the registry fee will end up getting almost $36 a credit. So if you do the math with 9,000 credits, you know, that's over $300,000, which ideally then is going to be put into long-term investment funds to generate income to take care of those woods in perpetuity. But it also gives us some capital that if we do start working, or when we start working with private landowners, that we can access those funds to upfront some of the costs. So the credits aren't just theoretical. They are.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I was going to ask you about that because
Yeah.
I knew that you had some success already. So you're such a great example. Thank you. And thank you both for your presentation. If you all would like to, you're welcome to come off mute, turn your cameras on. And then if you would just use the raise hand function if you have a question. But, you know, we're stopped sharing, so our speakers can now see your names. So if you would like to show your faces, that's totally up to you. It's always nice to see each other if you're comfortable. And then please just raise your hand function and let's get going on some conversation. We've got some time. Everybody's thinking. Zachary, go ahead.
Hey, and I'll come off mute and say hi. I'm often on the camera and say hi. I actually have some questions that, if they're too technical, we can take them off. I'm new to the terrestrial side of carbon credits, relatively new, but have some history on the marine side of carbon credits. So I was curious to a couple of things. First, the $35 credit per net, is that derived from the $51 social cost of carbon, and then you cut down brokerage fees and such? And if so, is there anything in the contracts or city forest credits that would tie that to that number, particularly because I know there's a proposal for that number to drastically increase. Whether or not that goes forward,
I can take
we'll
this. Yeah,
see.
the market forces kind of drive the price, and that's what the price is right now. And the price can be negotiated with the owner operator of the project. So for each project that's on the city forest credits, the purchasers are to contact the owner. And they negotiate it. Then there is a broker fee. The broker fee is less than 10%, and there is a registry fee if the buyer wishes to register themselves, or they can go through a different process where the owner operator removes the credits for them on their behalf. But so there are some fees that drive the price that goes to the owner operator down.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And the $35 credit in that is a good number from what I've seen so far. So it was nice to see that. I'm glad that that's what y'all are getting.
A lot of it's
Yeah,
based
and
on quality.
well,
Yeah, go ahead.
exactly. And that's Zachary, that's one of the things that was really important to me when I was talking with the broker about this opportunity was we didn't want to undercut what the market should be for these credits. They are high quality credits, but also recognizing that it's a completely voluntary market and it's not necessarily well developed yet. So we sort of backtracked and said, okay, well, we would like to, at the end of the day, get at least $35 a credit. So if we're doing that, then okay, and then we put back on the 10% for the registry that's going to go to the registry, and then the 6% in this case that is going to the broker. So that's how we came up with the amount, and then they accepted the amount. So
So I guess sorry, a follow-on question to that. Is that price negotiated at the point of sale or at the point of crediting?
At the
so
point of
that was for us, that
Okay.
was negotiated when we were approached by the entity that wanted to purchase the credits. Is they said, what is your price? And so the broker and I sort of went and, offline and said, okay, well, how do we figure this out? And then we came up with the number and then came back to them and said, well, this is the number that we think that we would like to get for the
Very cool.
credits. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else have a question or want to share their own experience if you've started looking into this, or is this completely new territory? Any of other land trusts or local government? Allie, I hate to call you out, but you're a creative person, so I'm gonna go to Jack and then I'm coming back to you. Jack, how are you? Good to see you. Go ahead.
Wondering about the Crowley project, the amount of credits you could have expected had you not had any management plan, just preservation only, and then please restate what you actually got for it with your good management plan.
Sure. So I don't know what it would have been without the ability to manage it. So that wasn't that wasn't information that I received. After the third party review and approval of the Davy Resource Group report, we ended up with, I think it's 6,800 credits that we could sell. They had I think their initial calculation was over 7,000, was close to 8,000, but they always take like a 10% reserve and set that aside, because if there are things that happen over the 40 years where there's some portion of the forest that burns down or is blown down by a tornado or whatever, then there's a buffer there of credits that can be used to fill that gap. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the answer.
Allie, you have anything? I put you on the spot because you're so creative.
It's funny. I had talked with Lisa at the Prairie State Conservation Coalition conference about this very thing, and she told me that I need to get off my butt and start looking at this. So I was really thrilled to see this opportunity come around. And now this has me thinking that I need to get together with Mary Vanderford and talk about what our possibilities are working together in the St. Louis metropolitan region on the Illinois side of things. So, Mary, I'll be giving you a call.
Yeah, Mary's here. If you want me to put you in a room, you can wheel and deal right now. That's awesome. The conservation connector works. People are connecting. I have a question about and then while other people are thinking about if they'd like to ask something or bring up something, how did they come up with the 40 years again? Why? And I mean, it's not in perpetuity, so it's different from, an easement or that sort of thing. So how does the 40 years, why 40, I guess?
I'm not sure. But there are other protocols where it's 100 years.
In California.
In California, yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure why. Personally, I like the 40. Because when I have talked with landowners, it's they see it, that's a generation. So like talking with a farmer who has 40 acres of woods, they automatically see the benefit that, okay, I set it aside for 40 years. 40 years from now, my kids who will be running the operation, they have the choice what to do then. But I don't know. It looks like maybe somebody else.
Very interesting.
Knows the actual answer.
Go ahead, Zachary, then Tess.
I suspect it's coming from Red Plus, because that has been Red Plus's kind of baseline, 40 years, which is an international forestry conservation, and then the plus allows for carbon. I will say I was surprised to see the 40-year mark because that's come under a lot of criticism recently. 100 years is kind of the scientifically accepted standard and is where a lot of the wetlands are. 40 years is getting a little into the other side of it. 40 years is on the in the scientific community generally considered too short to really make much of a difference to climate change, which is why 100 is starting to be the standard. So I was surprised by the 40-year mark, but I think it's definitely beneficial when it comes to interacting with the voluntary market, particularly because it allows that, as you were saying, Lisa. So I was, at one side, pleasantly surprised to see the 40 years. At the other side, disappointed to see that it was 40 years because there's the two different aspects of it. But I suspect it's coming from Red Plus, which has come under some fire in recent years. So it might change in the future. We'll see.
Very interesting. Thanks, Zachary. Tess?
Yeah, I was curious about, you said there's conserving existing old growth, and then there's, you can get credits by planting trees. Obviously, when you plant trees, they're smaller, and so the carbon sequestration is a lot less. So I'm wondering what the tree planting projects look like in comparison. And then also thinking about what qualifies a place, like the intention, like proving that you are preserving it and it's under threat, right? Like what exactly, just like the proximity to, like it's a great location for development, or what exactly it mean does it mean for a place to be under threat of not being preserved?
Sure. So I'll answer the second question first. And the criteria that City Forest Credits uses are if it's in a metropolitan planning area, and it is zoned for non-conservation use, and it is surrounded on at least 30% of its border is non-conservation uses. Then it's considered potential development land. So that's pretty straightforward. So if it's 40 acres of woods, surrounded by a conservation district or forest reserve district, it's not likely to be approved, because the surrounding land use is conservation. So yeah, it's probably not going to be developed. But in terms of the planting projects, so since we haven't been through a planting project, I'm not 100% on this, but I've read through the materials from Kendall County, who did do a planting project. I'll turn it over to Jess in a second, but I'll just mention this. Their planting project that qualified, I believe it's the credits are figured over a 20 or 25-year time frame. And they were really fortunate to have like 20 years prior to doing the planting for the carbon credits, they had done another planting that was very similar in terms of the acreage and the density of trees that they were planting. And so Davie Resource Group was able to go out and actually look at the results of that planting, and then use those to actually calculate the new one. So there's a protocol for that, and that the Forest Service has, but then also there's a real life example. And one of the advantages that I understand with the planting project is, after one of the disadvantages as opposed to the preservation is the funding is distributed over the time, over the years. It doesn't all come out at once. With the preservation project, you can sell all those credits up front. You don't have to do it in shares over time. But with the planting project, at the end of the 20 or 25 years, then you're in a good position to re-enroll with a more mature stand of trees. So Jess?
That's exactly it. I just put a Lake County project in the chat, where they are issued credits over time. Like, we anticipate that this will be worth 6,000 someday, but you get 600 this year. And then you can see all about the Lake County project and how many trees they had to plant and where they put them on the website.
Thanks, Jess. Dan?
Yeah, I had a question about, I'd like more detail on this 2-year thing. What does it mean it has to be acquired within 2 years?
So if you acquired the property in 2022 and it's now 2025, it doesn't qualify.
So all of the centennial farms and farm families and all that, they
Ah.
don't qualify.
But not if it's private. Not if it's private. If it's a land trust,
Gotcha.
then that's where the 2 years comes in. If it's private
Okay.
property, it's different because that's not in any way protected and it's not part of a private landowner's mission to preserve
Gotcha.
land.
Thank
That-
you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking.
Great question.
I thought Jay had his hand up at one point.
Are you Jay? Oh, Jay. Is it true?
Yes, I did.
Great,
It was,
thanks.
it was along the same lines as far as when the proceeds of the sale of the credits are received. And you were mentioning like $35 a credit. Would you get that in the first year, or is it spread over time? Things like that.
You make it to Chicago in one day?
So in our specific situation, so we signed a contract with the buyer, and it's up to 9,000 credits, and this is it hinges on the actual carbon, the calculation of how much carbon is generated by their large event that takes place in the fall. But because we were then committing to not sell those credits, to have those available for them, they agreed to make payments to us, 3 payments earlier in the year before they know exactly how many they're going to need. And so they've made the first 2 payments and we're waiting on their 3rd payment. So they'll have paid us 3/4 for 3/4 of those credits, probably by next week. And then after the event in the fall, when they do their calculation, then they'll come back and say, how many more credits do they need? And then they'll finish up to 9,000. And I can say if they decide they need more than 9,000, I think we'll help them.
Yeah, so it's totally negotiated by the owner operator, and it's a legal contract, and you have to put it through your lawyers and their lawyers, and it goes through the broker. And what TLC is an option contract, but you can do a straightforward contract where they just come in and say, I want 900, thank you, goodbye. There are a number of different ways to do it, and the project owner operator does it themselves. They set the price, and then they can decide on the option or not an option, things like that.
Great, thanks.
Zachary.
Curious to what, if any, enforcement mechanism there is, particularly for credits that are sold through, that may not be through, say, the Land Conservancy. If a private owner comes in and develops credits, it sounds like for preservation, they can get those credits pretty much right away. What kind of enforcement is there if, say, 20 years down the line, they decide, you know what, I'd rather just clear cut this land?
Any quick answer to that, and then we'll close with Jack's question because we've about 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, so Zachary, one of the this is one of the arguments I've made, and that the city forest credit is also keen on, is not working directly with private landowners. Because that's problematic when you're talking about a 40-year time frame, given people's lifespans and people's tenure with land, and instead working through entities like land trusts, whose business is to work with private landowners and to be organizations that exist in perpetuity, so that I'm not going to be here doing this in 40 years, but there'll be somebody here doing this in 40 years for the organization and continuing the work of doing the monitoring and doing the landowner relations. And so from a land trust standpoint, working with a private landowner, we have the mechanisms and have the I guess skill set of dealing with violations when they come up. And so that's part of the reason that in what we're trying to figure out the funding is making sure that we have the funds generated from becoming the operator for these private woodland projects so that we're able in perpetuity or in not perpetuity in these cases, but for 40 years to provide that security for the people who are buying the credits that yes, in fact, these woods are going to be preserved for 40 years. Does that help?
Thanks, Lisa. Jack, do you want to close us down with your question?
Talking about the 40 years and 100 years in California, and probably following on with the last question, what about a catastrophic event, disease or fire that wipes out the area within the 40 years, and both with respect to the loss and also cleanup?
There's indemnification contracts in the sale, but I don't know on the project operator side, but I know that there are various clauses written into the sale of credits for catastrophic events that are out of our control. But because these are urban forest credits in the CMAP area, in my case, they're very unlikely to burn.
Thanks, Jack. Well, I would like to ask one really quick question, and that's about capacity to manage a program like this. So is the funding is presumably then there for management? Can you put any of that funding to operations so that, you have staff that's going to be working, or like, how do you account for that? How do you splice it up? If you don't mind me ending with that question, and we're going over by a couple of minutes, but I always think about, different creative ways to bring in funds. Is that helping with operations at all?
Well, and so that's that's part of our long-term management reserve is not just managing the land, but is the human resources that we need to do the ongoing monitoring and documentation that need to be done. And so that's all part and parcel of that. And so making sure that there are those funds. And if it's on private property, then it's 100% of our funds are for the that ongoing responsibility for monitoring and documentation of the condition of the woods.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's always nice to think about, well, who's going to do this and how do we do that? So it's a wonderful, another special niche for our land trust community to fill, and working with local partners and finding those buyers. So thank you so much to both of you. This was such an interesting program, and please rewatch it. It'll be on YouTube in the next few days. Our wonderful Sandy Kazmarski, who is our communications specialist, she'll put that up there on our YouTube channel, and you can see 2 years plus of our Conservation Connector series. So there's a lot more there as well, and we will have at least one more before the close of the year. So again, thank you so much to TLC, Lisa and Jess, and your staff, and everyone who took some time out today. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.